In undergraduate school, 4 of us painters worked intimately close together, going to each other's studios every day or every other day to see how ideas were formed from previous visits. We fed off one another's ideas constantly. We even had a painting lingo that hardly appeared to be in English to outsiders. Those words still come up when we speak. I mistakenly assumed when I left school that another community would present itself as inspiring in some new, unexpected way, but it never quite did like that. Geographically, we 4 painters are far apart, but the internet has helped in that we send each other JPEGs to this day. My truest painting voice developed through living a very solitary life, painting from a very solid root that was born at that very early time. I have many artists in my life, but I don't have the painting community I once coveted and took for granted. What made us such a strongly knit family was working under the painter Jim Gahagan. Jim had been a student of Hans Hofmann in Provincetown and in New York, where he helped Hofmann with mosaic murals that were commissioned projects in Midtown. Hofmann was born in Bavaria in 1880 and then lived in Munich, where every house had several ateliers, whether they were for poets, writers, Thomas Mann, Rilke, dancers, painters. Kandinsky spoke of Munich as living on a spiritual island in the great world. A drawing by a student, Blanche Diesel, who was the only student of Hofmann's who was older than he was, and he was very delicate with her. What he did was draw diagrams on her drawing to show her how this maneuverability of space needed to carve the space. So this painting is about 6 feet high, and Hofmann leapt from his earlier recognizable objects to completely trusting color to move the space the same way that the space principles were applied in the figure drawing that you saw earlier. Jim died on my birthday in '99, very suddenly. He was a very decisive person. And it's taken all these years for us to bring together work of his students. We had a show in November at Johnson State College in Johnson, Vermont, a memorial exhibition featuring Jim's paintings. And his wife, Pat Gahagan's sculpture is in the foreground here. 13 of Jim's former students who are dispersed throughout the country were in the show. Jim painted in Vermont since his years at Goddard College in Plainfield, Vermont, from '49 to 1951. Hofmann, one of Gahagan's teachers, had given him a small stipend to survive on for the ensuing summers. He would paint in an old barn in northern Vermont. The rest of the year he lived in New York City and continued to work with Hofmann. In the summer of '71, a small group of young artists arrived in Vermont countryside to begin their studies painting and drawing with Jim. Jim asked that I teach at his school that he opened, but I was in my early 20s. That was my very first teaching job. The colors sing through the light that emanates from the color combinations themselves. I listen for the hidden secrets embedded in the paint itself and pay attention to how it wants to move across the surface of linen. Make the picture furrowed like earth and brilliant like sun. Make it pearl and diamond laden with color in every shade. Make it hard and weighty like rock, but dewy like fruit and pulsating as blood does in a loving heart. And fill it with life and laughs and tears, that it may be felt how you have felt it as the maker of a new world. It's always the painting I haven't yet painted that I'm most excited about. The one that will appear from the last ones that I never felt were finished. No painting is ever finished. I could essentially work on one canvas all my life and keep evolving it, but at some point I just let it go. It says something strong. It's time to move on. I don't want to look at it anymore. I have to get somebody to help me get it off the easel. People who are close to me, who hear me say, the painting's finished, I'm just going to fine-tune it to the tune of 8 hours that day, and the next day, and the next day. And finally, the person shows up and says it's coming off the easel. Thank you, everybody, for coming.